ACLU workers and it was Brian Lupo. Okay, fine. ACLU workers in Fulton County, Georgia, had access to ElectionNet software on their personal computers. Last week, TTP published a story regarding a post from investigative reporter Paul Sperry, where he disclosed that FOIA records show that ACLU representatives were shockingly given authority to process absentee ballot applications received through online portals, and then equipped ACLU poll workers with iPads to cancel absentee ballots without county supervision. Ballot applications are a hot topic after TTP's article that revealed a large ballot application harvesting operation in Michigan through a nonprofit called GBI Strategies. Joe Hoff broke a similar story back in June of 2021, revealing that 255 ACLU members were provided as deputy registrars with access to eNet, which is short for ElectionNet, to cancel absentee ballots. ACLU workers were supposed to be trained in the process. However, monthly reports indicate that only 18 deputy registrars were trained in January of 2020 in 2 classes, 31 in February in 2020 in 5 classes, and 0 from March through 2020 through October 2020. Joe Hoff also revealed that in August of 2021, the ACLU was actively recruiting once again for poll workers. Again, more useless information. We don't know. We don't need to know 2 classes. We don't need to know how 5 classes. We don't need to know that. Okay. However, the access given. This is why I love Jim and Joe Hoff. They write quick and simple and dirty. Every time they have a guest contributor, a lot of shit we don't need to know. Okay, that's not really relative to like. It's not important. It's not substantive to what we're like looking at. You know. However, the access given to the ACLU workers is more significant than having access to iPads and government computers with eNet access, which is linked to the Secretary of State to process ballot applications and cancel absentee ballots. In a podcast interview with veteran poll manager Bridget Thorne last year, she disclosed a bit more information about the access the ACLU clerks were given. Most shockingly, the claim that they were able to access eNet on their personal computers. In an interview, she revealed the following. The ACLU clerk, told me she was trained the day before. She did a Zoom training. I have a laptop for her to use, but they didn't give me the password to the laptop. So she was like, oh, that's okay. I'll just pull it up on my personal computer. So she used her personal computer and she had access to the entire eNet system and can clear any voter she wanted to vote. Thorne was, that's the end of that excerpt. Thorne, who has over 9 years of experience working elections in Georgia, said it is totally new to have someone from the ACLU inside your precinct. The software that the ACLU workers had access to has the capability of theoretically look and see who has an absentee ballot and hasn't turned it in, and they could turn one in for them if they had access to a bunch of blank, no stub absentee ballots somewhere. You guys hear that? Which means if someone has a ballot, if someone is a registered voter and they didn't turn it in, they could turn it in on their behalf. Is that messed up or what? It is worth mentioning that invoices and order forms were obtained through open records requests that show Fulton County ordered 770 extra 8-inch paper ballots with no stubs on October 16th of 2020 that were delivered on October 30th, 2020, just 4 days before Selection Day. They placed another order for 100,000 18-inch ballots with a ship date of October 14th, 2020, 2 days after an early in-person voting began. The Brennan Center suggested in February of 2020 that Fulton County increase the total number of emergency ballots at each precinct from the mandated 10% up 25%. Then in October of 2020, they filled an amicus brief in Curling versus Raffensperger, suggesting that they increase that number to 40%. Judge Amy Totenberg denied this request, so Fulton likely only had the 10% that is required by the state. Fulton County only had 808,000 registered voters as of November 1st of 2020. And with numerous voters voting early and by absentee, it is unclear why they would order 107% of their voting population in no stub ballots just days beforehand. Wow. 107% of the total voting population in no stub ballots. When asked why they would order 18-inch ballots, specifically with no stub, Thorne said, "I can't understand why you would order no stub ballots. In the precinct, hold on. In the precinct, if you're using a ballot of emergency purpose, and 18 for emergency, in the precinct, if you're using a ballot for emergency purposes, and 18-inch ballots were mail-in emergency, you have a stub, and that stub, the manager, when they use the ballot, they tear the stub away. The stubs have the ballot style, and they're numbered 1 through whatever. I had 400 in my precinct, so they're numbered 1 through 400 when someone would come in and need it. I could write down how many I used on that list, and you do a recap sheet at the end of the night, so they can make sure they got all the unused ballots back and all used ballots are accounted for. By having no stubs, you have no accountability for those ballots, and it would be atrocious if they had ever used those ballots on selection day for all the voting. You wouldn't know which ballots were used and which were unused." A representative of the Fulton County on a lead stories fact check from January 2021 stated that a representative from the Fulton County Selections Department confirmed in an email that the boxes contained extra November 3rd ballots if we had to go all paper. Doubters can feel free to check how many were ordered and how many we still have unused. Question is, how many were ordered that you did not put on record? An official with Georgia Secretary of State office pointed lead stories to the rules of the state election board, which require each county to print at least enough emergency paper ballots for 10% of its registered voters. There was a Rona outbreak in the English St. Petersburg warehouse that caused Fulton County to bring a Domino's V machine to conduct what? There was a Rona outbreak in English Street warehouse that caused Fulton County to bring a Domino's V, a machine or a representative, a Domino's voting to conduct logic and accuracy tests on their own machines. You mean a Domino's machine representative or employee or an auditor? You got one job. Journalists have one job, and it's to write. Good Lord, man. Every fucking article, man. So anyways, there was a Rona outbreak at the English Street warehouse that caused Fulton County to bring in a Domino's V machine auditor or repairman or serviceman, whatever it is. I have no idea what you're talking about here. A person to conduct logic and accuracy tests on their own machines for $2,000 per person per day. $5,000 per person per day on selection day for a total of $1.9 million. The logic and accuracy test is the primary safeguard between receipt of machine from a private company and the deployment for a selection. So it makes little to no sense that Domino's conducted this testing. Yeah, it should have been third party, right? The machines in Fulton County were tested before in-person voting began on October 12th. So it isn't clear why they needed 117%. 870,000 ordered plus the required 10% of the 808 registered voters, in addition to the hundreds of thousands of mail-ins that were sent out. But even more shocking, according to Thorne, they only tested 6 out of over 3,000 ballot marking devices, the machines you vote on, and then print the voted ballot that is read by a QR code, not your bubbled in choice, and is used those 6 to print ballots on those tests. That is the most long run-on sentence I've ever seen. You could have explained this in a separate sentence. Instead, you literally put an entire sentence in a parentheses. Holy shit, man. Was this Brian Lupo? Jesus. And Patty McMurray, huh? Below are 2 clips from the interview, followed by the podcast in its entirety. Okay, so let me explain this in a better statement. Okay, but even more shocking, according to Thorne, they only tested 6 out of over 3,000 ballot marking devices and used those 6 to print ballots to test on all of the scanners. Period. And then you say, ballot marking devices are the machines you vote on and then print the voted ballot that is read by a QR code, read by a QR code as opposed to your bubbled in choice. Did you guys understand my explanation a lot better?